Thank you so much for joining this lesson. Today we'll be discussing the Ogive. The Ogive is also called the cumulative frequency curve. This is on Statistics 2, Mathematics Paper 2. The marks of 50 students in a mathematics test were taken from a Form 4 class and recorded in the table below. So you can see the marks as percentages in classes. Then now the frequencies listed there. Part A of this question, draw a cumulative frequency curve to represent the data. A cumulative frequency curve to represent the data. So a cumulative frequency curve is what we call an Ogive. So for us to draw an Ogive, we need to come up with what we call cumulative frequency row, whereby we start with the first frequency, which is at 2. Then the next frequency is 2 plus 5, which is 7. 7 plus 6, this is 13. 13 plus 8, 21. 21 plus 11, 32 plus 8, 40 plus 5, 45 plus 3, 48 plus 2, 50. So we have a row for the cumulative frequencies. Now, for us to get a cumulative frequency curve, we plot cumulative frequencies against upper boundaries, upper class boundaries. Actually, for every statistical graph, you're just supposed to know what you plot against what to get the particular graph. So for cumulative frequency curves, we plot cumulative frequencies against upper boundaries for each class. So I'm now going to establish the vertical axis where cumulative frequencies shall be. So I draw a vertical line for the vertical axis. Then along this, we shall have the cumulative frequencies. Then on the x-axis, I'm going to have the upper boundaries, or rather the marks. So the marks of these particular students are going to occupy the horizontal axis. It should be noted by all learners and students that whenever you are drawing a cumulative frequency curve, there is already what you expect. And that is the good thing about graphical work. You already have an expectation even before. Even before you draw it, there is already what you expect. So in an Ogive, we just expect a stretched letter S. That's this way. We expect a stretched letter S. Therefore, anytime, even before you draw, you should be able to come up with, you should be able to have some expectations of a certain graph even before you draw it. We can see the values are ranging from 2 to 50. So we can use intervals of 5. Okay, for 50, when we use intervals of 5, we require 10. So let me check. 5, 15, 20, 25. Then this is 30, 35. This is 40. From 40, we can talk about 45. Then 50, 45. Then 50. Yeah, I think that's a good scale. And for the horizontal axis, we are moving all the way from 0 to 89. So that can call for intervals of 10. I think intervals of 10 will be very okay. So from 0, we go to 10. From 10, we'll go to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, like that. So we have labeled the axis. We've chosen scales. That is very okay. Then after this, we can now plot each cumulative frequency against the upper boundary. of the respective class. So when we are having 2 as the cumulative frequency for the first class, which is 0 to 9, then the upper boundary in such a case is 9.5. So with 9.5 now, it should be slightly just before 10. So 2 is being plotted against 9.5. That is the point. Just before 10. The next one shall be 19.5 against 7. So 19.5 against 7. 7 is just above 5. And 19.5 is before 20. We proceed. The next one is 29.5 and 13. 29.5 and 13. 13 is a... Yeah, that calls for a change here. Let's look at this. The order here is not very uniform. So I hope you understand that change. From 5, we should be having 10. And from 10, 15, then 20, 25, then 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Yeah, that way. So now 29.5 against 13. 13 is slightly above 10, but below 15. So that is the coordinates. We proceed to 39.5 against 21. So 39.5 against 21. 21 is just above 20. We are just identifying the coordinates. The upper boundary here is 49.5. Then we are having 32. 32. 32 is at this point. Yeah, that is where 32 is. The next is a 59.5 against 40. 59.5 against 40, so exactly 40. That's the point. We can proceed to 69.5 against 45. 69.5 against 45. So 69.5 against 45. That shall be here. Then we're also having 79.5 against 48. So against 48, slightly below 50. And finally, we have 89.5 against 50. Against 50. That is the point. So you can see, even before you connect the dots, they are already suggesting the shape of an ogive, which is a stretched letter S. So now we can connect all this to come up with our ogive. So we start from 0. Then we connect all the coordinates. A very smooth curve is expected. And when you look at what I'm coming up with, it's a very smooth curve. So that is our ogive according to the data provided. Cumulative frequency curve. I hope everybody can see it. Remember, when we are talking about graphical work, we are supposed to be able to see the plotted coordinates even after the curve has passed over them. So you're not supposed to have coordinates such that after the curve has passed over them, or the line, you block the plotted coordinates. That's why I'll continue encouraging students to plot the crosses and not just a dot, because a dot is likely to be blocked by the line or the curve as it passes over them. And that way, you will not have evidence of plotting. Remember, the way we shall distribute these marks is that we will give an independent score, that's a B1, for the cumulative frequencies. Then we will also give a mark for good scale, a mark for plotting, and a mark for the curve. That totals to 4. That is the 4 mark. Therefore, if the plotted coordinates cannot be observed, even after the curve has passed, then you will not warrant the plotting mark and also the curve mark. So it's good for you to have your work well planned. As we proceed to respond to the questions after the Ogive, it's good I bring to your attention some of our programs that we're doing. There is a mentorship program, which is actually ongoing. This started immediately we began the term 3. Therefore, every Saturday, we'll be meeting with the KJCR candidates, that's grade 9s, from 7:30 p.m. Then with the Form 4s, every Sunday. So you can reach out through our number here for more consultations so that we may continue growing together. The platform is happening on a Google Meet. Here, there is a lot of interaction. These are interactive classes, actually. Here, a student can raise up their hand. They can answer to questions. They can ask questions. So please feel invited to the same. Make good use of such a program. Then those who are continuing students, we will have a one-term ahead program whereby we shall be covering the term 1 work of 2026 with the students who will be in junior school and senior school in 2026. Therefore, you can also reach out again through the same number and register for our program. 5 weeks during the holiday. We are taking care of the festivals. So by 12th December, we'll be finishing up with the program so that people start their celebrations again. It will be happening via Google Meet. So kindly reach out and get to know more about our programs. Now, after drawing the Ogive, what are we told to do in part B? Use the curve to determine part 1, the pass mark if 70% of the students passed. So if 70% passed, then it means it is only 30% that failed. 30% failed. So 30% of 50 students. 30% of 50 students is 15. So it's only 15 students that failed. So the mark scored by the lowest 15, then that becomes our pass mark, or the mark that was not attained by the first 15. So we check the first 15 students. The first 15 students. So the column with students, that is what we will start with. We identify the column with the students on the cumulative frequencies. Then we check what mark has been scored by the 15th student. So the mark scored by the 15th students is going to be, actually, we should talk about the 16th student. Sorry for that. Actually, those who passed now are from the 16th students upward. So it is the 16th. The lowest mark for those who passed is the mark scored by 16th student. So the score by the 16th student becomes our pass mark because the 16th student passed, but the first 15 failed. Therefore, the mark scored by the 16th student becomes our pass mark. So we identify the 16th student. Above 15, we get the 16th student. Let's check that. Then now we check the mark which coincides with this student. What is the mark that coincides with the 16th student? So looking at this, we have a 30, 32, then 33. So the pass mark was 33. The pass mark was 33. percent. Remember, the marks are in percentages. According to the table here, the marks are in percentages. Therefore, the 16th student scored the pass mark. So from 16 all the way to 50, 35 students, they had scored above 33. But the first 15, they didn't manage. So the pass mark is not the mark scored by the 15th student because the 15th student failed. The 15th student failed. It is from 16 upwards. So that was the pass mark. These are technical questions which require a student to really reason and understand what the examiner exactly needs. Let's get to number Roman 2 of the same question, the quartile deviation. For us to get the quartile deviation, which is also called the semi-interquartile range, we need to take Q3 minus Q1, then we divide by 2. So we first establish the Q1 and also the Q3. Q1 is the first quarter of this. So the first quarter of 50 students is going to be 12.5. That means the 13th student. So what is the mark scored by the 13th student? The mark scored by the 13th student can be identified from our curve once again. The mark scored by the 13th student. So the mark scored by the 13th student the mark scored by the 13th student is going to be 29. No, 29.5. It's actually one of the coordinates. 29.5. Then when we talk about 3/4, Q3 means 3/4 of 50. So what is the Q3 according to this number of students? 3/4 of 50 students, 37.5, which is 38. So we need the mark scored by the 38th student. The mark scored by the 38th student. So we go to 38 and we check the mark that student scored. The mark scored by the 38th student. We read now. That is the intersection. So we check on the marks now. So we have to draw a very straight line there. Then we check the score now. This is going to be 50, 52, 54, 56. So 56%. Then this is 29.5%. So now we apply here 56 minus 29.5 out of 2. So 56 minus 29.5, then we divide by 2. This gives us a 13.25. This is what we call the quartile deviation. Then finally, the examiner is telling us to determine the range of marks for the middle 60%. The middle 60%. This is again a question which requires a student to be very keen. When we talk about middle 60%, then it means the other 40% should be divided such that we have 20, the top 20% and the bottom 20%. So that now we get the range of marks scored by the middle 60. So the middle 60 is ranging between the first 20, the last 20. We get the middle. So first 20%, what will be the mark scored there? 20% of 50 students, 10. So the mark scored by the 10th student. The mark scored by the 10th student. We identify that. The 10th student, then we move along that. Now we can read the mark. We can read the mark. which is 20, 24, 22, 24. So the mark is 24 there. 24%. Then the last 20 means now from it's 20 from 100. So 80th percentile. This is going to be the 40th student. Yes, the 40th student. What are they going to score? So 40th student. So we go to 40 and we read along. 40 and we read along. It's among the coordinates plotted. 40 is among the coordinates plotted. So this is 59.5. Yeah, we read 59.5. So we write 59.5%. So when we talk about the range now, it is from 24% all the way to 59.5%. So that's the range of marks by the middle 60%, because we have the first 20 and the last 20. That will give us the middle 60%. Thank you so much for following. Remember to subscribe and share with other friends.